The air was thick that summer day. Trump's steel edict landed in Detroit like a wrecking ball. American steel for American cars, no exceptions. For Detroit, it sounded like a death sentence. The steel needed for modern cars isn't just any steel. Detroit's future now hung in the balance. Mayor Mike Carney heard the news in his office, overlooking the city he'd fought to protect. A Detroit guy, born and raised, he'd seen the worst: bankruptcy, decay, the long climb back. He wasn't a showman, he was a pragmatist. He watched Trump's speech, face grim. The phone rang non-stop. Auto execs, union bosses, suppliers, all asking, what now? Carney didn't wait. He called a press conference, no flags, no cheering crowd, just a man with the weight of a city on his shoulders. He was calm, direct, he said no. Detroit would not be a pawn in a political game. The mandate was impossible, reckless, destructive. He explained the reality: supply chains, years to build capacity, facts over fantasy. This wasn't about patriotism, it was about survival. Carney's loyalty was to Detroit's people, the workers, the families. He chose them. The speech was a gamble. In politics, you don't poke the bear. But Carney had no choice. To stay silent was to watch his city crumble. So he spoke. He challenged Trump. Come to Detroit, visit the plants, talk to the workers, see the consequences of your words. This isn't a reality show, Carney said. This is our reality. These are our lives. The door was slammed shut. The battle lines were drawn. Detroit held its breath, waiting for the fallout. Carney's stand was bold, but risky. The city rallied behind him, but fear lingered. The press conference became a rallying cry. Detroit would not go quietly. The mayor's defiance echoed through the city. The people prepared for a fight. The stakes were higher than ever. Carney's words gave Detroit hope and a target. The city's fate was now a national story. The world watched as Detroit stood its ground. The mayor's stand was just the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Detroit's resolve would be pushed to the limit. The city's future hung in the balance. Carney's stand was a line in the sand. Detroit was ready for the storm. The fallout came fast. Faster than anyone expected. The market doesn't care about politics or patriotism. It cares about certainty, and certainty had just vanished. Before sunrise, the big three stock prices were in freefall. Billions wiped out in hours. The news tickers glowed red. It was a bloodbath. Investors saw the writing on the wall. Trade war, shutdowns, chaos. They sold. Automakers couldn't comply with the demand, but couldn't ignore it. They were trapped. Switching to American steel would halt production in weeks. Defying the order meant tariffs and investigations. The global manufacturing system was broken. The market panicked. Parts suppliers, big and small, saw orders canceled. Their stocks plummeted too. The entire ecosystem seized up. Financial analysts called it catastrophic. For Detroit, it was a heart attack in real time. The city's economic lifeblood was clotting. International response was swift. Retaliatory tariffs, a global auto war. The American auto industry became an island, cut off from the world. Carney stood on principle. Trump made his demand. The market delivered its verdict, guilty. The sentence was economic collapse. Detroit was on death row. The city's future was now a question mark. The world watched as Detroit's crisis deepened. The market's message was clear. Uncertainty kills. Detroit's struggle had just begun. The city braced for what came next. The first notice came by email: temporary stoppage of production. Everyone knew what it meant. The Jefferson North Assembly Plant was the first to go dark. The afternoon shift was canceled. The factory, once alive with motion, fell silent. Robots froze. Conveyor belts stopped. A half-finished Grand Cherokee sat on the line, a monument to the moment the world stopped. The news spread fast. Poletown, Dearborn truck, Warren stamping. One by one, the giants slept. For workers, it was a familiar dread. Shutdowns weren't new, but this felt different. This wasn't about demand. People still wanted cars. This was a crisis born of words. A political fight had flipped the off switch on their lives. Workers gathered in parking lots, staring at dark factories. Union reps tried to reassure, but fear was in their eyes. The silence was the worst part. The city's rhythm was gone. Traffic jams vanished. The shift change rush disappeared. Emptiness filled the air. The economic engine of Southeast Michigan had seized. It wasn't just UAW members. Parts suppliers, logistics, truck drivers, everyone was hit. A single decree had done what recessions and competition couldn't. It stopped the line. Days passed in uncertainty. No one knew if the plants would reopen. Companies issued vague statements. The union promised to fight, but what could they do? You can't negotiate with a mandate. You can't bargain with a broken supply chain. Workers went home, futures in doubt. They'd done their jobs, played by the rules, but the rules had changed, and they were the ones losing. The city's heartbeat was silenced. The assembly line halt was more than a pause, it was a warning. Detroit's identity was at stake. The shutdown rippled through every neighborhood. The city's resilience was being tested. The silence spoke volumes. Detroit's struggle was now a fight for survival. The assembly line halt was just the beginning. The city's fate was uncertain. Detroit waited for a sign of hope. The line had stopped, but the story hadn't ended. The trouble didn't stay inside the factory gates. It bled into the neighborhoods, fast. The first to feel it were the places that lived off workers' paychecks. Corner bars, Coney Islands, lunch spots. Bar stools sat empty. Lunch counters were quiet. The laughter was gone, replaced by anxious silence. Owners wiped down already clean counters, watching for customers who never came. These were family businesses, living week to week. A few bad days could be a disaster. A week could be the end. Phones and pizza places stopped ringing, delivery orders dried up. The local economy, fueled by blue-collar cash, was grinding to a halt. People stopped spending on everything. Every dollar was precious now. Hardware stores, bakeries, repair shops, all felt the freeze. It was like a winter storm in July, but this wasn't a storm you could wait out. Signs appeared, reduced hours, temporarily closed. Each sign was another blow to the city's morale. These weren't just businesses, they were community hubs. Now they were dark. The life of the city's streets was fading. The economic implosion wasn't just on Wall Street, it was on Main Street. It was a quiet, creeping devastation. One empty bar stool, one silent phone, one closed sign at a time. Detroit's spirit was being tested in every neighborhood. The city's pulse was slowing, but not yet gone. The mood of the city changed overnight. Optimism evaporated, replaced by fear, anger, and resentment. You could feel it in the streets, in the way people looked at each other. Detroit had been through hell before, but this felt like a betrayal. Anger was everywhere, at Trump, at auto execs, even at Carney. The city, once united, was now fractured. Blame was passed around, but no one felt in control. The hope of New Detroit looked fragile. The comeback narrative was built on the auto industry. When the king faltered, the kingdom trembled. Progress was replaced by a sickening slide backward. Crime ticked up, desperation grew. The social fabric, stitched with jobs and hope, was unraveling. Tension was everywhere, in unemployment lines, in worried faces. Detroit was on a knife's edge. The city's spirit was being tested like never before. The real story was at the kitchen table, in Bagley, in Rosedale Park. The crisis wasn't about stock prices. It was about bills, mortgages, tuition. It was about telling your kids the vacation was canceled, the new school clothes would have to wait. Private heartbreaks all at once. Husbands and wives whispered late at night, counting savings, making impossible choices. Do we pay the electric bill or the water bill? Dip into the 401k? Every decision hurt. The stress was constant. Families knocked down again just as they'd gotten back up. The American dream felt like a lie. Security was shattered by a political feud far away. The psychological toll was immense. Shame, anxiety, sleepless nights. The kitchen table became a command center for crisis. This was the human cost of Detroit's implosion, not measured in dollars but in broken dreams. The city's families bore the brunt. The struggle was personal and everywhere. Detroit's heartache was hidden behind every front door. In Detroit, the past is never far away. It lives in abandoned buildings, whispers from empty lots. The old-timers saw echoes of history: oil crisis, Japanese competition, bankruptcy. Each time, Detroit got back up, more bruised, more scarred. This time felt different, yet hauntingly familiar. The feared temporary shutdowns would become permanent. The Big Three might cut their losses, move production elsewhere. Was this just another downturn or the final blow? The progress of the last decade felt like a thin veneer. Had anything really changed, or was prosperity always one bad decision from collapse? Cynicism returned. The deck always seemed stacked against Detroit. Carney's defiance was noble, but was it enough? The ghosts whispered of betrayal and broken promises. Detroit braced for the worst, haunted by its own history. Today is July 22, 2025. The factories are silent, the bar stools are empty, the kitchen tables are battlegrounds of anxiety. Detroit's future is a blank page. The standoff continues. Trump doubles down. Carney holds his ground. The city is a hostage. One possible future is bleak. The stalemate drags on. Automakers leave. Jobs vanish. Detroit slides back into bankruptcy. The city becomes a hollowed-out shell, a monument to a lost industrial age. But there's another path, a hopeful one. Maybe political pressure forces compromise. Maybe the courts intervene. Maybe a solution is found. Factories slowly come back to life. The damage is done, but the city survives. Detroit learns a hard lesson about vulnerability, redoubles efforts to diversify. The crisis becomes a catalyst for real change. For now, the city waits, caught between ruin and resilience. The future will be decided by choices of politicians, CEOs, and the people. Will Detroit give in to despair, or fight back and rebuild? The story of Detroit has always been one of struggle and grit. The final pages of this chapter are unwritten. The world is watching. Detroit's fate is in its own hands. The city's spirit endures. The next chapter is waiting to be written. Detroit's story isn't over yet.